Today we're going to be tackling the engine mounts. So there's 3 engine mounts that we're going to be replacing. We're going to be replacing this one, we're going to be replacing that one, and then the other one is down under there, under the transmission. Alright, so here's the first engine mount. This is actually the transmission mount. This is what caused me to want to do this repair. We can see here's the new mount, and I'm comparing it, and it looks to be exactly the same. We see that there's this lettering N something NRBR with a couple little arrows, and that seems to be exactly there. There's also this where it says 98, and then it has some, or it had some like formations. They may have flaked off or whatever, but we see that is there as well, as long as that dot. So it looks like it's exactly the same. So this is what the mount, you see it's dry rotted and it has cracks all over it, and this is what the new mount, and we see it's supposed to sit higher. We'll see where it sits, but it looks like, yeah, there's this little bend right there, and there's that little bend right there. So this looks like an exact replacement. There's the part number. There's another video on YouTube where a guy goes through it. I'm gonna try to make it a little more comprehensive than that. So here's the mount. The second mount I'm going to replace is this torque strut mount. You see it's like a strut, and I'll be able to get into there. I may remove this fan. I actually removed the fan yesterday, and it gives you tons of clearance to get to there. And then the third one is this front mount right here. I think this is going to be the hardest one, but we'll find out. There's always little nuances along the way that'll make it harder or not. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this little strut mount, which should give me, since I'm going to be lifting the engine up, it should give me a little more flex to be able to move, because I'm going to have to move up the side of the transmission to get that one out. Then I may try to do both transmission mounts at around the same time, and then I'm going to switch over to the engine pan and move that up. And I'm probably going to get everything in loose, hand tightened, and then once everything's lined up, I know nothing's cross-threaded, I'll drop the engine and tighten up all the bolts. And the final mount, for those that are wondering, is this mount back here, and you can see that the rubber on that's pretty new. I did this almost a year ago, and it's sitting fine. This one was a huge pain in the ass, because you have to, for this particular model, or I mean maybe there's a tool that could have done it, but I had to, let me go under here, I had to remove this exhaust to get to that bolt right there, and then I stripped out one of the exhaust bolts, and it was a whole ordeal. So I'm glad that I'm done with that one. And hopefully I don't run into a similar kind of situation. So here we can see the extent that this mount went bad. I have it on a little piece of wood here, and just look at, I mean, you can see it's pretty much completely separated. But if we lower it, we saw that all those is cracked. So that would lead me to believe that would cause some serious issues while driving, since this is the main contact point. So good thing that we are replacing this. Leak I did notice is coming from on the transmission side. It looks like it's coming out of these bolts. This is a 99 Lexus ES300. This is that U140E transmission. I don't know if I can just take those bolts out and put some Loctite on. I don't know, but if anyone has any suggestions of, you know, maybe you've dealt with it, because it looks like it's just coming right out of the bolts. It doesn't look like it's coming out of the other seal, so maybe there's some quick way to fix that. I don't know. Alright, I just got all the bolts off. So here's the two rubber plugs, and then these are the bolts kind of in the configuration that they're in. It looks like all 4 bolts that go into the transmission are the same, but the nuts are different. The one in the front has this wider washer base, and then the one in the back is smaller, so that's good to keep in mind. The tools I used to get it, this air gun did great. I used this deep socket ratchet. It's a 14, and they just had it in the 3/8, or at least the one I wanted was in the 3/8. So I have a little adapter that took off the bottom nuts, and then to take off these 4 bolts, I used this 3/8 extension. It had a little wobble part on the front and this wobble socket. With just this wobble, I thought maybe I could get away with it, but no, it required this one. And I actually saw this on the channel Nickel Do It. He used these exact tools, and he said, you know, you could take it off with a wrench or whatever, but if you have access to an air gun, this is my uncle's air gun, it does make it a lot faster. So I would say, just make sure that you get a full contact, because you don't want to strip the bolt. You see here, there's a couple little impact points. I think that was the first one, and I think then I got the rest of them pretty clean. So just make sure that you get a, and you can, with those tools, you can get, there's enough clearance to get a, but yeah, that one got beat up a little bit, but it should be fine. But yeah, with this, just make sure you get a nice clean contact. Now we're going to lift this up and take this out. All right. Now I'm trying to minimize the amount of time that I have this pushed up, so hopefully I can just sneak this out. And slide the new one in real quick. Okay, so that got that out. Perfect. All right, so that was pretty easy to get out, and we see here the part number. I hope you can see that there on camera of this mount. Let me slide this in a little bit, and we see that it's the exact same part number. It's upside down there. There we go. But yeah, this thing was completely shot. So it's a good thing that we're replacing it. So I could see this wobble. Now let's compare this to the new mount. So here we have, it's literally the same exact part number. So I had gotten an aftermarket mount that said it was this mount, but something completely different came. Instead of having 4 holes, it had 1 hole, and then it had a stud sticking out of it, so it was clearly not the mount. So let's take off these stickers. Okay, let's take this off. That should do. All right, JD, is that the same sticker that's here? I think so. I think, there we go. So these are exactly the same, which is nice. So this is what this mount looks like after 23 years of use. You can see the rubber, it's all completely separated. You know, it's completely worn out. And then what a brand new mount looks like. So this is incredibly satisfying. It's nice and solid. This is going to be great. So let's slide this in here. Let's see. You're gonna have to look at me for a second until I get this turned around. All right. So now let's slide this in here. This is the right way. There we go. So now let's line up these screws. Hola. Bien. Okay, let's see if we can get these screws in. I want to lower it just a little. Let's see if right there I can get the screws threaded in. Alright, so I was able to get these bolts finger tightened. That was probably one of the trickier parts so far. You have to kind of raise it to a certain level. You really want to do it by feel. I would definitely recommend, if you can't turn it by your fingers, it's probably not going in right. So now it looks like I can move all these nice and smoothly with my fingers all the way through the thread. So I started with this side over here, the back side, and then I moved to the front side, and you see I have it a little bit raised, but still the studs are already lined up, so it should excuse me, it should drop right into place. So we're gonna finger tighten these. And then I'm gonna drop it and see how it lands. Okay. Okay. Now let's drop this. And let's see. We're gonna try to do it as smoothly as possible. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now we should be able to finish like a breeze. That one's not going. Maybe I have to remove a little. So that one is the one that's not going. Let's raise this up a little again. Stuck. Let's see. All right, so these are all finger tightened on. This one, there's still a little bit of a gap. Okay. Let's see what's going on there. Okay. There on swivel socket. And I'm going to check what the torque rating is on those before I just zip them up. So now, see if I can get these on. Okay, feels good. Okay, so that mount is done. Beautiful. Okay, one mount done. I just had to torque it down and put the rubber plugs back in, but that's looking good. So we got the second mount off. This is this torque strut. There may not have been anything wrong with this, but we're replacing it anyways. Now what's interesting here is that there's two holes but only one bolt, and I tried actually putting the top bolt into that second hole and it didn't work. And what's interesting is that this actually sits on top of this thing, which is some kind of weight. It has some pretty good heft to it, and it sits like that. So interesting engineering here, that this is like dampening. And when you look up, you could see the part number of it. Where's the part number? Yeah, right there, 512273360. And when you look it up, it's some kind of weight. So this is like rubber, but it feels like there's some metal in between. So let's take a look at our new part. So here's the new part, and it looks like a exact match right there. So it has a fresh new bushing, you know, I guess fresh seal, and everything else matches perfectly. So let's slide that in. Let me see, here is the cavity left. I took the fan out. That was the best way for me to be able to slide the impact gun in there. And we see the two holes. Let's see, turn on the light. So there's the two holes. So I guess that's not a screw hole, and that one is. So that one isn't a screw hole. I'm not sure what that is, but either way, there we go. All right, so we got the second mount in. That was pretty simple. I did just lift up the transmission a little bit, and then you're able to pull on that little strut mount, and then I finger tightened those two bolts at the bottom, made sure that this damper thing got back in place. Make sure you don't string this little vacuum line in the wrong way, so I made sure that that's still loose and free there, so that's good. And now we're on to the last one, the big boy, and let's see how this is gonna go. All right, here's the update. We've already seen that mount. I just installed this new transmission coolant line tube. It was a little ripped at the bottom. I just didn't want to take any chances. It was a relatively cheap part, so we got a nice new hose there. And now we're going to tackle this mount. So we have this double extension here to go down and grab that bolt. I'll be doing the same with that other bolt right there, and then I have to grab the third bolt underneath. So 3 up top and 1 at the bottom. Let's get to it. Alright, here's a little update. So we got all the bolts out for this top mount. We got the big bolt, we got these 3 bolts. Now, I would say the trickiest part was actually first snaking in the extensions to get that bolt, but then it was removing this whole little vacuum switch system, which I think helps stabilize it. So we could see here, you can almost see the part number there. So you have to do, there's 2 screws on it. There's one that screws this little thing to this damper, and let's see if I can see it from here. This screw right there, don't worry about that screw. Leave that screw alone, because all you're going to do is you're going to be torquing this thing, and if you don't realize soon enough, you could break it, and then that would be a bad day. So the one you want to go with is this one down here, and on the mount it goes right through there. You can kind of see it on the side. There's a bunch of gunk and so forth, but right there is where the screw is, and that's the one you want to focus on. Unfortunately, this is an area, as we see, it's right under the oil filter, so every oil change, inevitably some oil drips out, even if you drain the whole thing first. So this whole thing gets coated in oil and then dirt. So I mean, I guess you could put a rag or whatever, but that hasn't been the case. So now we're going to lift the engine up and pull this mount out. Alright, so we just got that front engine mount off, and boy, look how shot it was. It's completely detached from the housing, and it wobbles around, so no wonder. And also this little I forget what this is called, but this little membrane here is completely cracked. So it's supposed to be able to take in air pressure, and it does not. So I don't know, maybe this is contributing to have a P0446 code in this car. Maybe this is it, because air is leaking out. I don't know. Alright, here we have the 2 mounts side by side. We see they're exactly the same. That membrane is looking nice and plush, and then we have the little tube here on the side for the vacuum. We see there's this little thing right here, which holds something. Oh, that holds the clip for the wire, so the wiring harness goes there. And then we have the little place here for the screw to go in, and then we have this little clip that holds the vacuum hose. So before I put it in, all I need to move over is this over to there. Let's see if I can do that on camera. I don't know if I am. I think I'm gonna need some tools. This is quite the thing. So we're gonna squeeze that and move that over here, and then we'll put this in place, and then attach the other little vacuum hoses and the little vacuum switching valve. But we see here, this is what a shot mount looks like, and then we see here, this is what a good mount looks like. That doesn't even budge. So now there's a trick to it, which I saw in one of the videos, which is that you want to put a wrench right on here so that you don't twist it when you're torquing down the bolt. I don't think this bolt has all that much torque, but still, we'll play with that. There's probably going to need to be some finagling to get all the bolts to line up, but we will figure that out shortly. Using these pliers right here, that was pretty easy to take out. You just kind of squeeze and push, and eventually it came right out. So I'm going to try to clean this down a little bit, and then we'll slide that in there. Alright, so a little update. I cleaned off this plate as best as I can with carb cleaner, and it's looking pretty good. Let me actually hit that just one more time. Okay. I know that's probably not, oh, damn it. Okay. let's rinse this off. So what I believe this is supposed to do is it's supposed to take the torque. I mean, it may have other purposes, but when you're tightening this down, these little flanges are gonna grab onto the top of the mount, and then this little nub right here goes into the engine bracket. So getting this lined up will be interesting, but either way, when the torque is being applied, instead of pushing against this and the rubber and the housing, which could cause it to break free, and we'll get a situation much like this, what should happen is that the torque plate should take the torque, because it'll be rotating against the engine, and that should allow me to torque it down. So if I place that on here, I was thinking, I'm like, there's no way for me to get a wrench under there to hold on to it, but that now makes sense. So let's move on. I also wanted to just give a view of what this looks like all under here, because this will probably be the last time that we get this much of a view in there. So there's the little vacuum switching valve. Here's the new bracket. Now I did something stupid. I sprayed brake cleaner trying to clean that hole, and I got some on my oxygen sensor. So I hope I didn't screw up my oxygen sensor, but if I did, I know why. So yeah, hopefully I didn't. I'll check it when I get it started. Alright, so we're gonna slide this mount into there and get it back together. Alright, here's the update. We have the front mount in, the torque mount, and the side mount. This one I would say was the easiest one to get on. I was most worried about this, but what I did was put this top bolt on first, so I got it, the whole little assembly in place with this top plate, and then I hand tightened it as far down as I could until the little knob on this plate engaged with this bracket, and then I did this bolt and then the other two, and then I just finished kind of giving it a light wrench tighten, and now I'm going to put back the whole little vacuum switching valve and screw it back on and put everything else back together, and then it'll be about putting everything else back together, finding some torque specs on all these bolts, and finishing up. So far so good. Alright, so the installation is done. The last thing is I have to connect a little connector. I just put a little bit of electrical connector cleaner, but that's all been torqued down, that's all been torqued down, and that's all been torqued down. So 3 new mounts. We're gonna see how it drives once everything gets back together.